Applause.
Thank you, Eli. I think the first slide is a reading, is it? Yeah, so maybe I'll ask Mia to come up and do the reading. I hope I'm not catching her too much by surprise. Oops.
Okay, you get it. All right. Chapter 1, the etiquette of attendance. Section 1, a life of attendance. You should live a life of attendance and encourage each other to be strong in doing so. Up to now, you received salvation through a life of faith, but from now on, you will find salvation through attendance. If humankind had not fallen at the outset, you would attend God as your way of life. Attending God is something you do with your whole heart in your daily life. Wherever you go, you should always feel that your Father is in front of you and your Mother is behind you, and that heaven is with you at every moment, to your right and left, above you and below you. When you, as Unification Church members, carry out your mission, your public responsibility in the church, you may run into difficulties that you cannot resolve on your own. When this happens, you should purify your mind, cleanse your body with a bath, and pray sincerely to heaven. When you pray, ask God for his guidance, and he will show you the way to go. If he does not, it is only because your heart does not reach the standard of God's heart. If it does, he will surely answer you. Could someone pass the slide for me, please? Thank you. If you entrust everything to God and rely on him when you face difficulties, keeping a praying mindset, I say, God will guide you in the right direction through your intuition and nation. It's the same for you. You must go forth holding on to the world that I'm conveying to you. Satan has no power to deny in this age you are justified by living in attendance to God. You attain salvation through attendance. Previously, you were saved through paying indemnity. However, you must now enter the age when you attend heaven. There must be a nation where everyone lives in attendance to heaven. Jesus was chased out because he did not have such word. Since even Satan recognizes God, if you substantially build a family that is aligned with the word and with the heavenly world, then centering on your family, you can freely expand your foundation. How can a nation emerge without families? It is from our families that our tribes can emerge. Centering on our tribes, we can create our nation, and from that point, God's world would emerge naturally. This is the expansion that will take place starting from blessed families. Now is the era when we live in attendance to God. Okay. The Unification Church does not talk about the kingdom of heaven based on the faith alone. Moment of pause. Critical silence mode here. Sorry. All right. Based on faith alone. We say that the righteous are justified by attendance, that we are saved through attendance. But to attend God, you need to know him. It is not a problem to attend him once you understand the teachings of the Unification Church. Once you truly understand them, you will know God and find it natural to attend him. Having said that, I ask you, how regularly do you feel God's presence? How many times during your 24-hour day do you feel his presence? Can you expect to be saved through attendance if you attend God 2 hours a day? You should need God more than you need to breathe and seek him more desperately than a choking person gasps for air or a dehydrated person craves a drink of water. God is more essential than food. You have to know God's situation and circumstances, understand his heart, and then think of him as you would your father. He is your father, my father, and our father. Why should learning about God, listening to him, and attending him be our way of life? It is so we can come to understand God's circumstances and heart as they were expressed in the pages of the Bible. It is to understand that God is our own Father who has been wounded, trampled upon, rejected, Rejected and torn. Okay, rejected and torn. Thank you.
We should maybe get a round of applause for that. Thanks, Mia. Sorry for landing you with that. So good to see everybody back in live services again. It's great. Do you want to just move it on? Thanks. So my topic is just reflecting on 30 years of church membership, or since I joined 30 years ago. I think I warned people about this back in January that I'd be talking about this, but I didn't really want to kind of do it so much again. But for me, this is a special time of year. I always say this if I'm giving service at this time. October the 3rd was unification. It symbolizes kind of unification. Foundation Day used to be celebrated. Foundation Day for the nation of the unified world. We used to celebrate that. I think with the new calendar, maybe it's moved on a couple of weeks, or is it next month, or when is it? November 7th. Yeah, November 7th. But also the unification of Germany happened, and October the 3rd is when it's Unification Day, I believe. It's also my dad's birthday, which we celebrated back home in Westport, his 80th birthday a couple of weeks ago. So that was something that we were looking forward to, with some trepidation, because when you get together with all your family, many times it can be kind of fraught with difficulties and stress, and you're kind of trying to avoid rows. But no, it passed off without incident, as I used to say about the marches up in the north. Nobody was injured or killed. But more importantly, I felt we made really good connections and good harmony, and the absence of any conflict meant there's something to build on for the future, for my parents' 50th wedding anniversary coming up in February, which we're preparing for. So I think some of the crucial relationships in my family, me and my sister, me and my brother, we were able to really make great progress, and I'm so grateful to God for that, because one of the things I wanted to talk about today was, attendance. You saw from the reading, attendance is so important in our life of faith, but what does that actually mean? I was very inspired recently by James, actually, and the Chunbo, that he was able to get, James and Rose, that status. I forget what the word is. You're not elevated, you're inducted. Inducted. I love that word. It's great. Inducted into the Hall of Fame. No, really, it's fantastic. And Howard and Patricia, of course, already have that. So the challenges for the rest of us. So step one is getting on well with your tribe, and step two, trying to kind of reach out to them with blessing, and then maybe other people in your circle of influence, or congregations, churches, if you're working in that area, interfaith. I think John is also working in that area. So, but I didn't want to feel like it's pressure, this Chumbo thing, because it's in the past, when you feel you have to attain something, a goal, and then you feel stressed, and then you can just get negative and resentful. So for me, I want it to be a joyful thing, where I'm meeting with my family, I'm sharing with them, we're having celebrations, and then I'm slowly able to get across sort of our vision and our view of God and salvation, and just through a life of attendance, basically, is the key thing for me. But this time of year, so when I moved into the centre in Manchester in 1991, the New Hope team, I think it was called, the usual name around that time for when new members joined. So it's funny, like 30 years ago, obviously Ireland was a different place. This was in Manchester, but over here was, we still had economic chaos. We had people killing each other up in the north. We had, I was thinking about the peace road that we had just a few weeks ago. And actually, for me, it was incredibly moving to be able to go there, because I've always wanted to go to Derry and kind of have some sort of experience, positive experience there. Because I remember when I went there for the first time in 1993, I was on British MFT fundraising. We'd come over from the mainland, and we were, I forget what we were selling, because I was just like a rabbit in the headlights, kind of transfixed with the situation up in the north. Marches were going on. So you'd find yourself, this was August 1993, in the middle of fundraising when there's marches on and lambeg drums banging in the background, and you were here, what am I doing here? I mean, I'm not supposed to be here. This isn't my sort of, I'm a Catholic from the west of Ireland, like that's my faith. What am I doing here in the middle of orange marches and in the middle of the towns and cities up there, particularly Derry, where it would be a kind of a nationalist city, but still you had this literally siege mentality still in 1993 because the peace process hadn't really started yet properly. And so anyway, I'm reflecting on things like this because of my 30 years now in the church. And I know many of you are a lot longer in the church, but for me, I guess all I know at this stage, having joined at 18, really is the church. I had my life before that, which was not so good, and life after, which has been, that's very complete in many ways and very many amazing experiences. I'm very grateful to God for that. I think shortly after I joined, True Father went to North Korea. To put a year on that, I think it was 1991, wasn't it? When True Father went to North Korea, maybe November 1991, which is actually a month after I joined. And I made the point before that, or even weeks after I joined, but this was like, for me, I thought, oh, these kind of things are happening all the time in this movement. You know what I mean? This is normal. I thought, wow, what an amazing kind of organization, like going to North Korea, the Reverend Moon, the founder. Little did I know that was really a key moment in the Providence, such a key moment. Even today, we're still trying to deal with the consequences of that and the how to build on that foundation, how to bring about unity in Korea. So True Mother, of course, with the Rallies of Hope is working on that. You can move on the slide a bit. So yeah, I was thinking, okay, well, I've been obsessed with different things for the years, but I wanted to have new goals for the future. So Chumbo for me was really that thing that I wanted to focus on in terms of the next 30 years, if I'm alive, please God. So the challenges of tribal messiahship and trying to, because I don't know, different people have different backgrounds, but my background and my reputation in my family wouldn't have been great in the past, because joining the church doesn't make up for misspent teenage years, because especially a church with such notoriety as the Unification Church within the Catholic community at that time. Now, of course, today we have a much better image, and they see my family, they see my wife, beautiful wife, and my kids, and they see an example of somebody who's trying to live a life of virtues, of trying to raise a good family and is very sincere. So I think that goes a long way, of course, to changing their perception of, if they had whatever negative perception they might have had about the unification movement. So you can just move it on, actually, another one. Bringing us back to Derry and the Peace Road we had recently. So for me, it was like a circle, the closing of a circle or the closing of an era, because when I went there in 93 and I prayed in St. Colm's Church in Derry, the Church of Ireland Church, I really was, very upset that this is the situation in Ireland, that we had such, it's hard for you to know, young people to realize today the situation we were in the 80s and 90s. James, you remember well. I mean, even the 30 years of conflict, if you like, from 68 to 98, would say, it was really, really, you wouldn't go to Northern Ireland normally. I have friends who still haven't been to Northern Ireland, and they're my age. It's a spiritual thing or psychological thing as well. But so to be able to have that rally in Derry and to see the change in the landscape there and the change in the atmosphere, everything is really incredible and very moving. And to be able to bring God and True Parents' vision, and just a little bit to that city and to Northern Ireland in general, for me was very precious. And I'm very grateful to everybody as well that we could work together. And I think through projects like that, we can change or improve the image of True Parents and the unification movement in this country, which is one of the biggest challenges we have. And I want to talk about that in a minute. We have a discussion group online. Some of us, I think Eli is in it, and Tenko and a few people. where we discuss headwing issues with people like William Haynes and David Eaton. And one of the challenges is belief in God or atheism, how to counter that sort of mentality. Another one is Marxism, cultural Marxism, or woke kind of culture, if you like. Another one is the image of our movement, the PR, the negative PR that you might say a lot of people haven't heard of us, they don't care so much. Yeah, they don't care until something happens, like Donald Trump comes to a rally of hope, and then you get a lot of some negative media. Some of them are attacking him, and some of them are attacking us and using him to attack us and us to attack him, yeah, to make him look bad. But the fact that Trim Other can attract such people like that, for me, just shows the foundation that we have. And the challenge for us, wherever we are, is to kind of, yeah, I guess be proud of who we are and what we represent. But even at work, in many cases, I can't straight out say I'm a unificationist and believe in true parents and Reverend Moon, because it's getting easier, of course. And I think depends on your situation. If you have a good job, permanent job, or the people around you, the type of generation and stuff they are. But I think it's important, these projects, I don't know what value they have in and of themselves. I think they're like conditions, the Peace Road, in a way, of reconciliation and healing. But they're also, I think, good from the point of view of PR. And now I don't want to be too external or cynical about it, but if you have an image problem, how do you solve the image problem? Of course, as a religious or a faith organization, we have to do actual good works and actual good projects and live for the sake of others. But the other thing we have to do is actually work on the PR image by having a strategy to change that image or to improve that image and to let people see who we really are. So I was delighted to be able to go back to Derry, and I felt it was the kind of closing of a circle or the end of an era that I could stand there and see. When I remember praying sincerely in Bulgaria when I was over there in 1992, I think it was, doing missionary work for 7 months, 8 months. And I prayed to God, look, I'm here in Bulgaria, communism is finished. It's incredible time. People are coming to God, young people, and hundreds and hundreds of young people coming to workshops, coming to seminars in workshop centers all over Eastern Europe and Russia. And I'm thinking, this is wonderful. But in the back of my head, I was thinking, well, probably I'll end up in Ireland at some stage, and that's not going to be easy because, the situation there at the time was basically conflict and unemployment. You see, in the north, you had conflict, you had war, civil war, and in the south, you had like immigration and unemployment. So it's totally transformed today, and my prayer at the time was, this looks impossible, Heavenly Parent, to ever be able to solve our problems. But when you see the possible, like with communism collapsing and Eastern Europe throwing off the shackles of this satanic sort of empire and democracy coming and freedom coming to Eastern Europe, you have to start to believe that maybe it is possible to bring peace and reconciliation even to Ireland. So I felt like it's a new age. But I was always confused about, well, is it just that I'm feeling this because I'm after having a conversion experience, I'm after coming to the unification movement, to God and true parents? Or is there something different going on in the world today? I mean, Tiananmen Square in 1989 happened as well. So lots of things happened. The Berlin Wall fell in 89, So it was definitely, that period was an incredible period. So just this testimony, which really moved me from our Scottish brother, what's his name? David, his last name? Fraser Harris. Thank you. I'm having a meltdown. So I won't read it all, but yeah, as you can see there, he was very moved with having met Glenn Doherty, whose dad was killed, murdered, assassinated, whatever, by the British Army in the march that he was on for civil rights. It wasn't a protest as such. It was a march for civil rights because nationalist Catholics in the north had been denied that basic things, voting rights, things like that. up to that time, they were looking for those restoration of rights, or it was basically a Protestant state created for Protestant people. So that's just a lovely little testimony from David Fraser Harris. And I think, just these type of experiences that people had, for me, made it all worth it, because there was a time during the Peace Road preparation where I felt, why are we doing this? Like, we're spending a lot of money, a lot of resources, mobilizing a lot of people for what? To what end? Is it really worth it? The stress, and then, but this, for me, this type of experience, really, I felt vindicated. Also, even the small things, Vittorio and Mie and Eli, everyone mobilized to come, James and Rose, and also even Dylan, like helping out with Bonner Olinchik, that one of our speakers, Aboud Al-Jamali, when he wanted, because he's very into social media and all this sort of stuff. So he wants everything now for his Twitter and his LinkedIn and his, whatever. I can't keep up with it. So he wanted a video of himself on his own phone while he was talking. So he's coming to me asking me for this, while I'm in the middle of trying to MC the event, and he seems oblivious to this. He wants me to take a video of him while he's speaking on his phone, as well as all the other recording that's going on, So anyway, it was great to have Dylan there. So I said, look, see that guy down there with the ponytail down at the back, that young fellow, you talk to him, he'll sort you out. He'll do the recording for you. So that was fantastic. The way everybody pulled together, even on the walk as well. I think we were blessed that we had, you can move it on again. We had nice weather and stuff, So I just want to thank everybody really from the bottom of my heart for your effort and your investment. And maybe you think you didn't do a lot, but believe me, everyone's effort and presence was incredibly appreciated and welcome. So I was, just moving on then to the point about belief in God, which is another thing that we kind of struggle with. If you like, you can move that on. And another one. So this idea of, does God exist? I think a lot of young people especially struggle with this, and a lot of older people as well. But I think when you live in a society where you have good opportunities, unlike, we'll say, the past that I described, where you had to work very hard and you had to struggle, and maybe a lot of people didn't survive, they got into problems, addictions and stuff like that. But if you did survive, you normally were forged from steel, if you like, and you were able to kind of overcome any challenges. So for many people, they still would have had faith. I would have been one of those people who believed in God. And, maybe not the Catholic idea of it so much, but that was what was there at the time. That was the only real kind of exposure you had to God. They had the franchise for God in Ireland, as I always like to say, so you had to go with that. But when I went to Manchester, I was exposed to all the other different religions and faiths, and eventually to my spiritual father, Franklin Fortune. But I think today, if you're kind of in a nice environment, and this is what we want people to be in a nice environment. We want people to live in external comfort, and that's a good thing, but it brings with it its own problems. You kind of get, sometimes I feel we get removed from real life, from and from God. So if I struggled with this point for a while, trying to understand, is there a God? And you get to get asked that question as a parent by your kids, or I think if you go to workshops and that, William Haynes probably deals with this. I'm going to show a few of William's slides. He has a very nice lecture about the existence of God. So for me, the point that kind of started to maybe not prove it, but the thing which I felt atheism couldn't explain was this point about irreducible complexity. That's something, it cannot be broken down any further. That at some point something was created which was kind of complex enough that it couldn't have happened by accident or by chance. And so is there, you can't prove that there's a God, but you can't prove that there isn't a God. So you have to look at it from a probability point of view. This is my own opinion now. I'm not a scientist, and I've had debates with people about this. Even last week, myself and Tinko in an insomnia in Cavan, he was telling me, yes, you absolutely can believe in God. And I know he's listening here today because he's getting he's unfortunately can't be with us, but I hope he was sick recently. So I hope he'll be get well soon. But we were frantically arguing in insomnia in Cavan about, yes, you can. He said, you can. If 5 million people in the world believe in God, then there's evidence for you. And I'm saying, yeah, but that's just personal testimony. For me, that's not scientific. So that doesn't work for me. That works for him. Yeah. But just the funny thing was, we were getting so much into the argument that I knocked over the cup of coffee and silence. So it was all over the table, you know. And I was thinking, a little voice in my head said, you did it again. You did it again. Just shut up and listen. Don't need to argue every point, even if you believe you're right, you know. So I had to repent there, but I hope you'll forgive me for not listening to him. But yeah, so if you can move it on. Yeah, thanks. So this kind of idea, I know Omar, our brother Omar from Carrickfergus up in Antrim. I never know whether to call him a professor or not. I know he's listening as well, but or doctor or what to call him. So I just call him my brother Omar. He gave a really fantastic lecture. I don't know, was it 10 years ago now, about the existence of God, and he went into the scientific sort of side of it. So a lot of this kind of covers the same area, but move on. You can just keep flicking through until I tell you to stop, Mia. So stop, go back. Yeah. So the discovery of the Big Bang, we'll say, this was something that caused a lot of problems for this idea that God always existed, or this, you know, time and space is a concept that we can't understand as human beings, but the world has always existed and always will. All right. It's just that we can't wrap our heads around it because we're bound by time and space. But the idea of the Big Bang blew that out of the water. That implied that there was a beginning, there was a creation, if you like, or a beginning, a start. And that was that, as Aisling said to me, I don't believe that. How can a little atom like that exploding cause the whole universe to exist? Which is actually a good point. I was like, yeah, maybe she has a point there. But you know, I'm happy enough by the science around that, which I don't know, is it that's next slide or this slide before that? Go back. This radiation, this cosmic background radiation. Is anyone familiar with this? Rory would be. Yeah. So if this is scientifically true, then it kind of gives you a good idea that the Big Bang is true. So you can move on again. And so this is an awkward sort of discovery, right? That 14 billion years ago, the Big Bang happened, because this means that the world and the universe didn't always exist, that there was a starting point. All right, keep going. And yeah, keep going. I just want to flick through most of these. These are from William Haynes's excellent lecture, which I only came across, yeah, last week, actually. We were discussing it in our group, Headwind group, and I asked him, well, can I have a look at these slides that you're talking about? Because I was confused about William. Did he believe in evolution or did he believe in intelligent design? Because he kind of, I know some people are familiar with William Haynes, but if you ever go to Don, or you might have come across William's lectures, yeah, and Rory, yeah. Don't know if the younger lads have Colm and Doyle, no? Not yet. But I kind of felt he was dismissive of intelligent design, and is he a full-on evolutionist or what? Because I know that you can believe in evolution and you can believe in God. It's just that Darwinian evolution has problems in it. And how did the jumps happen? Because it doesn't explain the links, the missing links between the different stages, all right? But you can move on. So Hawking, you've heard of Stephen Hawking. He said that the universe must have had a beginning, but so the problem that scientists and philosophers or scientists are dealing with is not the how, but the why. They reckon they know how it happened, but that doesn't explain why the universe happened. Go on. Yeah. It is not how things in the world, it is not how things are in the world that is mystical, but that it exists. So why? Why does the world exist? And why are we here? That's the big question that science probably will never, I don't see how science can really ever answer that question. You know? So so there will always be a place for faith and for God and for religion in that sense, to understand philosophy, to understand why are we here? Why was the world created? You know, you can move on. Just flick through the next few. Yeah. So this idea that what would you expect from the Big Bang? You know, you'd expect chaos, disorder, randomness, and ugliness. But what is the universe like? It's orderly, it's complex, and it's beautiful. Yeah. So what's the chances of the Big Bang? You can click on ahead. What's the chances of the Big Bang, big explosion, beginning of time, if you like, that everything would work out so perfect? Yeah. If it was smooth, the chance of a smooth beginning would be, I don't know what that figure is, 1 to the 10. Maybe Rory, you can, how do you say that? 1 to the 10 or 1 to the 10,000, 1, 2, 3 power, yeah? That's the chances of a smooth beginning. Yeah, that's not very good odds, is it? Yeah. So that makes me kind of believe there has to have been some creator, designer, call it God, call it whatever you want. But the chances that this happened by accident and randomly, that's the chance there, basically. Okay, moving on then. And keep going. So yeah, so that for me, and Omar's lecture was very detailed and very similar, Professor Omar. So I actually think there's very little chance that there's no God. So if the consequence of that is that there is a God, and if there is a God, then we have a responsibility, don't we? I mean, in a sense, to understand God, if we want to be happy, even just on a selfish level, to achieve nirvana or to go to heaven, or to, chances are, if there's a God, there's a spiritual world, yeah, that there is eternity. I mean, I'm looking at this from a skeptical point of view. I'm a person of faith who is absolutely convinced there is a God because I have personal experience with God. I think Hawking's idea is that just because there's a God, it doesn't mean he's a personal God. A lot of scientists look at it like this. Just because God or something created the world, just because there's intelligent life that created the world, doesn't mean that he or she or it is a personal thing that you can have a relationship with. Whereas True Father, Reverend Moons, is the antithesis of that. He's saying absolutely you can have a personal relationship with that God, even though there's billions of souls in the world, in the cosmos. Each of us is unique, and each of us can have a personal relationship with God. The problem today, I think, in society, and I hate using the word woke, but we'll use it because people kind of have an idea what it means, right? The problem is that people don't have the same background, in a sense. They're not starting from the same point and the same assumptions that there is a God. And not only is there a God, but that it is a personal God that you can have a relationship with. And that's really the challenge. If you're trying to talk about the family and talk about higher ideals and talk about God and talk about true love, if the starting assumptions aren't the same, then you have to go back and you have to try to educate people, if you like, help people, show people that there is a God. And not only is there a God, but there is a personal God that you can have a relationship with. And how do you have a relationship with? Well, that's what religion and faith is about. That's what making conditions is about. That's what mind and body unity is about. And then you build on that, and you try to achieve that on the family level and on the, in your community. So you have living for the sake of others. Why would you be bothered living for the sake of others? I mean, if there wasn't a God, there's no point really, like, in living for the sake of others. This is I think Nietzsche was making this sort of point, like, it's for weak people. Weak people live for the sake of others. Weak people are unselfish. You won't get anywhere like that. Or the Marxist sort of thing, kill or be killed. You got to be at the top of the food chain. Otherwise, you're going to be because you're going to die anyway. Like, so what's the point in living for the sake of others? But that's the other mentality, and it's scary and it's shocking and it's horrible and it's depressing. But we need to not just react in a way that's emotional against it. We need to react in a way that's scientific, if you like. And those odds there, 1 to the, or 10 to the, what was it?
10 to the power 10,150.
Good man. Yeah, they're not good odds. And you're a betting man. You're like, you know that better than I do. I know where I'm putting my soul or my money, you know? Anyway, so it's just something that I think we need to be aware of going forward. And not, I mean, we know this already. Not everybody's starting from the same assumptions in terms of belief and stuff, but we need to come up with a way, I think, and this is one of the challenges in our group, in the Headwind group, with people like David Eaton, William Haynes, and Elijah and stuff, that how do you educate yourself, your friends, your family into kind of basically in a quick way, like we did with Causa and the anti-communist theory. How do we do that for today's problems of wokeism or cultural Marxism? You know, you don't want to spend all day giving lectures. People don't have that sort of attention span. They've got 2 or 3 minutes, if you're lucky, on a YouTube video. That's it. That's what you have. So you need to be able to do that. And I think it's difficult for even my generation. I consider myself young, but 30 years in the church, like, I'm not that young. So your generation, second and third gen, like, you just need to be able to understand that, I suppose, and then be able to explain it to other people. Explain those odds. But it's not just intellectual, theoretical, unless we have experiences with God. Like, we had the benefit of being able to go out and do missionary work, witnessing and fundraising and doing projects. So God was a very real thing for us. Like, when you were struggling in the rain and you hadn't, managed to sell any product, or you couldn't find anybody interested to come back to the center to hear a lecture, and this is happening regularly, and you were struggling with your own fallen nature, as we call it, or your own problems, and you were hungry and tired, and you just wanted to throw everything away, like that, then God would come to you. Then you would experience God incredibly many times. Holy Spirit. What opportunities do young people today have for that? I think if you're involved in sport, or you're involved in drama and in the arts, I think you can have incredible experiences with God. And I would encourage people to do that. I'd love if I had the chance to be better at sport or better at arts and stuff, And I think that's one big advantage that the second and third gen have today, is that they're starting off from a good place mostly, and they have good foundation, so they can really excel in different areas and become leaders internally and externally. So I'm very proud of our second gen here in Ireland and in Europe, and I just hope that we can give the right support as parents, because there is that kind of separation sometimes of understanding, background, where you're coming from, expectations, and also trust. Sometimes, it's very hard to let your kids out to society, knowing what's out there, what's awaiting for them, and the sort of difficulties or temptations. But so just to wrap up, that's what was on the Peace Road. Yeah, for me, it was really nice to be able to have that project finished for the year and have that stress over, but also hopefully we left some sort of good feelings and good vibes in Derry and in the Providence here in Ireland. I think that's the last slide. If it is, you can maybe there's one or two more, just pictures and stuff. Yeah, yeah. That's where we had so yeah, trying to get peace ambassadors is a real challenge, because you have to look after them as well, and not all of them understand the vision. Some might understand 10% or 20% of the vision of True Parents, from what we do in terms of the family, to unification of Korea, to the blessing, all these areas, the core things that our movement does, but if you get people from a faith background to come and become ambassadors for peace, at least they may understand 20 or 30% already, because they believe in marriage, for example, or they believe in the family. So, a lot of them are serving in the community that they're from, and they want to, to help their communities, or sometimes they're just ambitious and they're politicians, and you got to deal with that as well. So that for me is the most difficult part of the job, trying to look after them, because they don't have the foundation that members have of, you know, being kicked for years, soldiers willing to do anything, basically, the grunts on the ground who are, you know, many, of course, I'm not saying that's a good thing, you know, I think it would have been nicer if we didn't have had so many casualties, of course. But the peace ambassadors, you really, it's like you're serving the peace ambassadors. That's the only way you get them to do anything. And I think for me, Danny was incredibly important. She naturally has that sort of heart. But everybody, you know, I really want to thank everybody for coming and for serving and taking that time out of your day and investing in making it a successful event. Each and every person, brother and sister who came, I think, absolutely contributed to that. And I want you all to have a big bowl of bus for yourselves, please. I don't know if we're going to have one again or what the situation is, because we need to evaluate this and see what is the point of it. And you need to come up with a new idea and a new inspiration every time. You can't just do the same thing. So, but David Fraser Harris, I remembered his name. He was happy. He gave a nice testimony. Other people felt happy as well. Vittorio was explaining to me he couldn't believe how much he enjoyed it, how good it was. I don't know what he was expecting. Maybe he was surprised it was slightly professional or something like that. Maybe we all were. But anyway, it could have been a post-coronavirus thing where there was a lot of repressed sort of desire for celebration and getting out there and walking, and I think the weather helped as well. So, but most of all, I'd like to thank Heavenly Parent for helping us to finally get something done after the COVID, but where we could meet together physically. Just to close, then maybe there's a 30-second video there if you're able to access the link. Tinko's company made that there now, his video production company. One Technology. So you can watch the full event is up on unification.ie anyway if anyone wants to watch it. So I'll just close with a prayer. Heavenly Parent, come before you this Sunday and this beautiful day to thank you that we can gather together as a congregation, as a church, to worship you and to acknowledge you and to thank you for getting us through so many difficult months, and pray for those who are still struggling and are still sick, that they can overcome their sicknesses or difficulties, and that we can see everybody again soon and be able to go back to some sort of normality, Heavenly Parents. And we thank you for our successful event recently, and help us to understand the desires or the demands of the providence, and not to see them as demands, but to see them as joyful occasions that we can carry out with love and with attendance, Heavenly Parents. Especially I want to thank you for the Jumbo Providence, and help us to reach out to our tribes and to our communities, and to feel that we do represent you, Heavenly Parent, and that we do have the standard that you can relate to, and that you do want us to be part of your kingdom and part of your providence and part of your efforts, and that you value each and every one of us as your precious sons and daughters, Heavenly Parent. And we all are unique, and we all have our own challenges and our own difficulties, but we also have our own talents, and we have our own skills, and we have our unique perspectives and unique ability to reflect your love. And we ask you to guide us and to help us to create relationships of true love in our families, and to build blessed families that can really save the nation, Heavenly Parent. And we ask you to guide us and to show us the way, and we want to offer to you now this Sunday service, and I'm to pray and report all this in my name, Colm of the County Blessed Family, Chuck Buck,
Okay, thank you, Colm. The story with him and Tinko arguing about God in the cafe really reminded me of my college years, debating about politics and philosophy, religion. So it's good to see the passion is still there. It's one of the yeah. The point is it's, it's the things that really matter to people, right? That they really want to, they become very expressive about, and it just means that it really matters, which is good. So in terms of let's have the final song, and then I'll do announcements, jumping ahead of myself.